He loves wrestling. He gets the business, and he's worked with some of the greatest minds in the history of the business. He was being set up to be NWA heavyweight champion, and he made it very clear, like, look, I'm retired. Like, I'm done with that part of my life.
Yeah.
Very happy to see his success. I remember being at TNA, and there was some grousing about Kurt Angle being the champion, which seems strange to me because Kurt Angle is one of the all-time greats. I'm like Matt Cardona.
You're always. That's a great way to start. It's good to see you again.
I wish I was Matt Cardona. He's having his best life.
My goodness. I mean, thanks in no small part to you and the NWA.
Love working with him, and he's been a great addition when he's been around. I think his business model of being a free agent has been very smart in this current marketplace. And I think because he sort of gets the marketplace, both in terms of the brands, ideas, companies, he's been really easy to work with. And really, anytime he's come in and done business with us, it's always been fantastic.
This is a vintage shirt you're wearing. Shouldn't this be the NWA 75?
It's 2 years old. I haven't gotten my NWA 75 shirt yet.
Well, I feel like if anybody's going to have it, it should be you.
These are the much ballyhooed NWA 73, where we came back after the pandemic.
Yes, the big one.
The Empower show, and then a great second night. Yeah, it's amazing. NWA 75. It's pretty wild. We're just starting to kind of get the traction with the media on the event, as people realize that it's pretty rare that a company could run 75 years continuously.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of those years weren't the best years, but the fact of the matter is it never broke.
Yep.
You have a complete, successful lineage of champions, and I think that is the one thing that the NWA has that pretty much nobody else in the business has.
Is it still a daily thing where you're explaining to people, yes, I own a wrestling company?
Yes, every day. We call it colloquially the wrestling bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And I would assume you and I both live in the wrestling bubble.
But you also exist very much so.
But let me finish my answer on that, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. What I'm trying to say to you is that there's a lot of stuff that matters in the wrestling bubble, and it is really important. It is really important, particularly to us in wrestling. But the minute you step through those gates and go out into the real world, which is the world I mostly live in because of my band and my other businesses, you realize how little wrestling matters outside that bubble. And the shame of it is most people, when they come in contact with really good professional wrestling, they enjoy it. So something has broken here in the last 20 or 30 years where the common person, and I don't mean that pejoratively, doesn't really understand or appreciate what makes wrestling so fun for the family and great entertainment. And meanwhile, wrestling sort of has turned its back on the common person, why they go after somebody who's willing to spend a lot of money per year to do destination events and merchandise. We've seen similar things in rock and roll, but wrestling has a particular kind of way of doing it. And of course, I've said a lot in the last couple of years, I think that's sort of wrestling's bigger overall problem is we've stopped sort of reaching out to the common person and trying to kind of find them where they live. Of course, you have two major brands with television shows on broadcast networks. So the argument is, well, here we are, we can be found. But back to what I'm trying to say, when I walk through life and people are like, why are you involved with wrestling and what is this? And that kind of tells you that something's sort of a little bit off there.
There's always this, well, I used to watch wrestling when I was a kid.
I hear it all the time.
We all hear it.
And not just in regards to the NWA, I hear it all the time. Not everybody I talk to like that is an NWA fan. They might be an old school WWF fan or whatever. They just don't get it. So my whole point of the NWA at this point, going about 6 years into owning the company, is trying to figure out that formula where you can take really good mainstream professional wrestling and bring it to the people and once again sort of bring back those greater numbers.
Where do you think that right now in 2023 that the NWA fits into the wrestling landscape that exists?
I think we're properly positioned to be the next big company. I know people will kind of go, how does that work? I think it has to do with my access to mainstream media. I think it has to do with my access to every network in the world who's interested in what I'm doing, and I'm just trying to find the right business models with them. And I think it has to do with presenting a mainstream wrestling product that the average person, if presented on television, will respond to. I think once the NWA can get in that position, if we can get in that position, and you can argue that's a big if, but if we get in that position, I think we will run side by side with the biggest companies in the world, because wrestling by and large is a cheap product to make. That's always been its great attraction to television.
Yep.
And it has a consistent audience that'll show up week after week. So getting from, let's call it, the bottom of the pile to the top of the pile. Now, that's a vast distance, but if you can cross that desert and get to the other side, well, it's pretty wide open. And in terms of product, I think the NWA fits quite comfortably between AEW and WWE. WWE has a very hardcore fan base, but they do business in a very particular way. Of course, that's much debated through the years. Vince, of course, is the only promoter that's ever made money in wrestling, so we always have to pay tribute to that. AEW, of course, is running a very brand-specific product. Tony's found business where people didn't think business could be found, and all credit to him on that. But again, that mainstream, up-the-middle position of professional wrestling is sorely lacking. Many people would argue that WWE is that mainstream thing. I would argue it's its own version of niche.
We'll get right back to the conversation in just a second, but Blue Chew, big shout out to them for supporting this episode. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but it's in chewable tablets and it's a fraction of the cost. And even if you don't need help in the bedroom department, whoever your bedroom partner is, I promise you they are going to enjoy it, because you'll go from like to, and you can interpret that really any way that you'd like. The process is so simple. Just sign up at BlueChew.com. Don't forget to use the code CVV. You'll consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you will receive your prescription in just a few days. And let me tell you, my friends, when your package arrives, your package arrives. And you can try Blue Chew for free. Yes, for free when you go to BlueChew.com and use the promo code CVV at checkout. You just have to pay $5 for shipping. So even if this was something that's not even on your radar, you can give it a try and you can support the channel by using that code CVV at checkout at BlueChew.com.
I think that the longer this actor strike goes on right now and this writer strike goes on, it only really benefits pro wrestling.
Yes, and here's the other thing, and it's, I know you have a smart audience. That's why they watch you.
Thank you.
Yes, that was a compliment.
A rare Billy Corgan compliment. Thank you, sir.
I dole them out very sparingly. What they call in the business OTTs, over-the-top networks. Live event sports-based programming is really, really important. When Netflix, for example, came off their high horse 5 years ago and said, we will never touch professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And fast forward 5 years later, and I'm on the phone with Netflix having meetings. I'm not saying I'm going to Netflix. What I'm saying is that shows you that live event sports is one of the most important things to those digital OTT type networks.
I mean, look at YouTube TV is the home of the NFL Sunday Ticket right now.
I wish YouTube was a better partner to professional wrestling and a lot of live event sports. They're just not. Of course, we run for free on YouTube, and it's been a good thing for our business. But if YouTube was truly a faithful partner to people, content creators, didn't you come up through YouTube? Isn't that kind of how you built your world?
Well, I think originally television, but then I was like, wow, there's way more eyeballs on YouTube for free.
But did you find that same thing where you didn't really find that YouTube was sort of there for you,
Yeah,
right?
I still
we've
feel
had
that.
the same issues, and I think that's a lot for a lot of content creators.
Yeah.
If YouTube truly understood, I think, the model that's coming, where you need this kind of new relationship that's heretofore not been seen, which is like, hey, I'm a content creator. I don't care who I am. Who's the brothers that built their brand?
The Paul brothers?
The Paul brothers,
Yeah.
right? Sorry.
Jake and Logan?
Yeah, I mean, they've done an incredible job of gaming that system.
Sure.
But they should be viewed as no different than a show on Fox or something. And YouTube doesn't really look at that model properly. And by the way, I have a little bit of bite and vinegar in my thing, because YouTube for years, of course, has looked the other way when fans cover my songs. I don't get any of the money on that.
Oh, wow.
And that's sort of an interesting other backstory.
Yeah.
YouTube kind of turned a blind eye to people covering people's songs. Now, if you put a clip of one of my songs, I do get some kind of royalty there.
Sure.
But if you were to cover one of my songs on your out-of-tune acoustic guitar, I don't get anything for that. So YouTube as a business model benefits from people covering artists' music.
Wow.
So that's just a little sideline on that. So anyway, I think that the networks that are starting to figure it out are going to be what YouTube could have been, or maybe will eventually be, which is like, they will look at someone like you and say, we got to get in the Chris business because this guy's figured something out.
Yeah.
Rather than treat you like, hey, you're lucky to be on our platform. we'll dole out a couple cookies to keep you around, but not really pay you for the value that you're bringing.
We're in a really weird in-between area right now where like, I think we still really respect traditional broadcasting and we're not quite there. Like there's still a bunch of people.
I think we're there.
There's still a lot of people that have no idea who Mr. Beast is, biggest YouTuber in the world. And I think that like, I think that we're getting close to being there, but
I don't mean this disrespectfully, and I don't mean it disrespectfully to Mr. Beast. Look, I signed with the record label in 1990, and as an artist, content creator, I had all the pride and ego of somebody of like, hey, you need me. And I could never understand why the labels treated us so poorly. And they've paid for that over time. But the essential idea is it's still the networks that are the thing, because they're the people that have to make those decisions. Most talents rise and fall meteorically in windows. Some stick around, which is why down the street we have a bunch of Gordon Ramsay restaurants every time you turn around, right? He's built this brand off of what became what was a television personality, right? Where I'm going with this is I understand the pride of a content creator. I understand the pride of an NWA to make 100 plus hours of television a year now. Like that's a big deal for me, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention the expense that's involved and the logistics that are involved. But if you're YouTube, if you're Paramount Plus, Peacock, whatever, they have to figure out who's hot in the market. And that's ultimately what it's about. So what I'm trying to say to you is I think we're already there. If you look at the losses that are going on, I think it was a Peacock that just came out, $635 million loss in 3 months.
Man.
But why are they willing to endure that loss? Me speculating. It's because what's coming is the business. So what I'm saying is we're already there. They just haven't figured out the math yet.
Plenty more to get to in this conversation with the one and only Billy Corgan. But a big thank you to MyBookie for sponsoring this episode. MyBookie is the place to bet on combat sports. So we're talking UFC, boxing, and yes, WWE. You can bet on WWE at mybookie.ag, which I know it's surprising, right? But if you think you know a ton about wrestling and you're like, man, there's no way that this person would ever lose to this person, well, why not sign up at MyBookie and make a little bit of money on it? And at MyBookie, you can bet on, really anything. And with the NFL season right around the corner, sign up at MyBookie using the promo code CVV and you'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So throw in, $100. Now you've got $150 to bet on your favorite NFL team or maybe your least favorite NFL team or any of the upcoming WWE PLEs. That's mybookie.ag. Use that promo code CVV for a 50% welcome bonus.
So what's the perfect partner? What would be the perfect partner for the NWA?
I think a digital-based network with a broadcasting arm that has reach in lots of different areas. And me as a content creator can basically work with them in whatever area they're in. So if they have a broadcasting arm, I can provide traditional broadcasting, a television to people who still want to sit down at 7 p.m. and see whatever's on TV. That's fine. And then you have the digital for people in the younger generation who don't sit and watch destination TV. They want to punch it up whenever they want. And of course, there's fast networks and stuff like that. So I think that's where the NWA will fit quite comfortably. And I've had a lot of those conversations in the last 2 years. So if you could imagine it, if I'm painting a simple picture for people, it's like, here's a great content creator in the NWA figuring it out, getting better, getting stronger, getting clearer on a mission and targeting the audience that we want. And here's a digital-based sphere with obviously the broadcast arm. You still see it as broadcast to digital. I actually see it the other way now. I think it's digital to broadcast, and you meet kind of in the middle. And if you're hot and they're hot, then everybody rises together.
So you're saying you want a live component of this at some point in time down the line?
Yeah, I think everybody knows that, again, you have a smart audience. When you run live event stuff, that's a lot more expensive than, say, putting stuff on tape.
Yeah.
So, just like look at the respect that you must give something like Raw, which is run how many years? It's like to run a live-based show on time, deliver, main events and stuff that really matter, keep an audience coming back. That is quite an accomplishment. You look at the infrastructure and stuff like that. So when you look at why an Endeavor would pay $9 billion for WWE, one person would sit there who doesn't understand and say, well, you're just buying, what are you buying, wrestlers in a ring? Yeah. No, you're buying a whole culture that knows how to make that work week after week after week. In their case, multiple times a week.
You're also buying IP. Like, everybody, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, knows the WWE / the WWF.
Well, we're seeing that, swing it to music for a second. We're seeing where artists and what artists have created through the years has far more value in the marketplace than anybody could imagine. I think Bruce Springsteen just sold all his stuff for about $500 million.
Are you going to sell the pumpkin stuff?
At the moment, no. I don't plan on it. I've had those conversations. My catalog is valuable.
Of course.
Well, thank you. But what I'm saying is I don't think all the math is in yet on what the true value of artists is. I made this argument about 10 years ago at a music symposium, and people kind of rolled their eyes at me because it was mostly radio programmers, and I was chastising them for saying, "Do you understand that the Beatles and Queen are far more valuable to your stations than the band that had the one hit?" And that you really should get in behind the branding of the brands that really have made a difference in your business. Paint a quick picture, because it does kind of work back to wrestling. 1992, I walk into a radio station. My band is just one of 500 bands.
Yeah.
It took real visionary people to go, no, your band means a lot more to this radio station than everybody else. We're going to kind of lean into you. When my band hit fallow times in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started getting shoved aside, and I started saying, but you're still playing all my other songs like 9 times a day. Don't you still want me in the room? And they were like, no, we don't need you anymore.
Wow.
So what happened? They all came back around. Why did they come back around? Because the value of the brand, or Nirvana or Pearl Jam as Pumpkins, is far more valuable than the band that had like 1 or 2 hit songs. So we see the same thing in wrestling. It's like we've seen it with fan conventions and stuff like that, but let's call that the lower tier of why is WWE now sort of getting very much in the business of like documentaries, and because the brand of a Ultimate Warrior is far more valuable than they would even imagine 10 years ago.
Nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
I'm not the biggest fan of nostalgia. I love it.
I feel like your band, for so many people,
don't use that word with my band. Here's the thing. I have three songs on the charts right now, which is pretty hard to do at this point.
That's amazing.
Thank you. But
which 3?
Beguiled, Empires, and Spellbinding, all from the new album.
That's great.
And then, of course, obviously a lot of music from the past that gets played very regularly.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, and it's kind of a bit of an esoteric argument, is you have to understand the value of a brand, and you have to sort of illuminate that value for people who go, I don't get it. So, for example, the NWA, when it's laying there 6 years ago, nobody wants it. I made the mistake one time of saying, and I was being honest, saying, the NWA was so worthless that the WWE even didn't want it. That's a true story. The WWE passed on buying the NWA from Bruce Tharpe.
That's actually shocking, considering everything else they've bought.
What is that? The clickbait of it is they jump all over that because it makes a good headline.
Yeah.
Okay. But if people were smart enough, which most people aren't in that clickbait world, the real nuance of what I'm saying is WWE thought so little of the NWA brand, they didn't even think it was worth taking it off the market because they never thought it would be a threat. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying I'm a threat to the WWE, but there might come a day where I'm a threat to the WWE, where for pennies on the dollar, they could have taken the NWA off the market. Because if you can get the NWA properly positioned with the right network and the right situation, again, these are ifs, then the value of the NWA, the value of the NWA history, the value of the lineal titles, the value of the fact that the NWA is connected to a Terry Funk and a Dusty Rhodes and a Dory Funk Jr. and a Jack Briscoe and a Ricky Steamboat and a Flair. Suddenly all that kicks in. Now you have something you have something of value. That's the hard thing. The problem is people think it's a nostalgia play. It is not a nostalgia play. It's never been a nostalgia play for me, and I figured that out very quickly.
Does WWE ever reach out to you and go, "Hey, Billy, could we have the licensing for some of this footage?"
Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah. We have had conversations like that, and I've said this a few times. WWE has been nothing but great to me. Absolutely world class, first class, great. No problems, no poaching of talent. Total respect for the contracts. No messing with my talent. Nothing. I mean, absolutely gold standard, perfect. Any business conversations I've had with them, always great, always respectful, have nothing but good things to say.
And then it's just been a business exchange of like, hey, could you give us this footage from 19...
It's been everything from conversations about footage that they might want in particular instances. In fact, there was a recent conversation about something involving something I can't talk about, but no, because I try not to be that guy.
Yeah, of course.
To everything to where, and I've talked about this a few times, where we had conversations for a long time about me possibly being the NWA being on the network and talking about how that would work. They were in a different mode. This is all pre-sale, and other things involving other NWA things. So Yeah, been great. Nothing but praise there.
What I think is fascinating about you, and I've always been so fascinated, is you are able to go all in on music. And at the same time, you're also able to go all in on wrestling. And I don't think that people are able to chase after both of those things with the same passion that you have for both.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people to understand. I know when I first walked through the doors of wrestling as a person who was going to work in wrestling, which started about 10 years ago, it was everything from Money Mark to, that's just some celebrity they're just letting feel like he's in the show so we can get something out of him. It took a long time to establish not only credibility in the wrestling business, but also that I was here seriously to run a business. My favorite headline, and this goes into lazy clickbait stuff, is, Billy Corgan, owner of the NWA and wrestling fan. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Put it this way. If I'm a fan, I'm paying more for wrestling than just about any fan on earth right about now.
Yeah.
Actually, Tony would probably beat me.
I think you.
So I'm probably number 2 behind Tony.
Yeah.
Tony's number 1. I'm number 2. And fan paying for wrestling, right? to pay what we want to see. No, it's a business. And I think it's great in life if you can pursue things that you're passionate about. You've done a great job of that, and make a business of it. So, it's the old saying, if you're excited to go to work,
sure.
Right? I think both of us get up every day excited, like, hey, I'm doing exactly what I want to do. So wrestling's been a thing where you can certainly spend a part of each day questioning, why am I in this business? But luckily for me, I've been in a really dumb business for over 35 years. That's called the music business. So dealing with the dumb side of wrestling has not been that shocking, although I'm forever shocked.
Which fans are more fickle, music fans or wrestling fans? Really?
Oh yeah, by far, wrestling fans.
And I'm sure you're hyper aware of this. Tyrus is such a sticking point for some people.
Really?
Yeah, it's shocking, right?
I've never heard this. This is new. This is news to me.
What's interesting to me is a lot of people that hate Tyrus, who think he's a real life heel, have never actually watched 1 second of him on Fox News and have no idea what any of his takes are on there. But there's he's there, I don't like him.
Yeah, It's an interesting subject because it's like, put it this way, if we were talking about Tyrus as a phenomenon, right? Here's a man who was Snoop's bodyguard, who made the transition from being a bodyguard to a famous music icon, to working in professional wrestling, getting over with the biggest company in the world, leaving and continuing. When I met him, he was working at TNA. We both were. And then I was there when he first went on a Gutfeld show, which was kind of like a lark. They tweeted something, and Gutfeld invited him on the show, and he took off.
Yeah, he's like, "I'll be there."
So I think with everything with Tyrus, you must always start with this. Here is a man who grew up in a very tough situation. Okay, he created his own opportunities in a world that we all admit doesn't necessarily give people like him the best opportunity. He fought his way through. He's been successful at everything he's ever touched, and now he's a best-selling author. So he's got 3 sort of bona fides under his name.
And he's doing these live shows, and making all kinds of money off of that too.
Yes, and his wife and he are putting those shows together, so he's almost kind of running that on their own.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, so let's say it's 4 successful venues he's operating in. He's 50 years old. He still has a lot of road to go, and I don't think the story is yet told on him. So let's talk about him in wrestling. He loves wrestling. He gets the business, and he's worked with some of the greatest minds in the history of the business, whether it's Dusty or Vince, right? So you start there. So when people try to bring in, let's call it the social political aspect of the world that we live in, which is very important, I'm not disregarding that. But when you try to make that something about how a wrestling product is supposed to be booked, that's where you lose me. So I'm supposed to weigh more a political consideration over this man's brand and who he is as a human being. I like to stand next to successful people. I mean, I have my own issues in life about wanting credit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in a band, but I like to tell people, by the way, I wrote all those songs, right? There's a distinguishing thing that needs to go on there sometimes. Like, by the way, I'm the guy who wrote those songs. So you can talk about the band all you want, but I'm the guy who wrote it, right? So you got to give this man his respect. So if you can't give this man his respect, and you take away who he is and what he's accomplished simply because of the network that he works for because you don't like sort of the political aspect of it, that's where you lose me. Because that seems like a strange argument to make. So wait, stop. You're gonna in 2023, you're gonna look an African American man in the face and say, we're gonna disregard everything you've accomplished when we're all talking about how the deck is stacked against someone with your background. We're gonna strip all that away because we just don't like where you're coming from politically. That's a weird thing to me. Because I was told in the world that I was growing up in that you needed to give people opportunities and you needed to respect people who accomplished something. Right.
And if anybody were to watch Tyrus on Fox, he's more often than not the voice of reason. And I feel like a lot of people just won't even give it a try.
We live in that world. I mean, you know, I've stuck my foot in certain social and political issues through the years, and there are still people that will not let it go. And I like to think, look, if we're watching Chris's show, we're wrestling fans, right? The world. What happened with the rise? This is a weird point to make, but we're talking wrestling. Stone Cold was probably the first true Flair, you could argue maybe, but Stone Cold was a new version where the anti-hero heel was the babyface.
Yep.
And it kind of blurred the lines of like, Hulk, eat your Wheaties.
Say your prayers, eat your vitamins.
Eat your vitamins.
Yep.
Stone Cold was like, no, I'm going to punch you in the face and
give you
drink
the
a beer
middle
afterwards
finger,
and make fun of you, right?
Yeah.
So we live in a morally ambiguous world. And so when people try to divide the world into good team, bad team, it's really a discredit to the intellect of what we need as a country. Things tend to be a little bit more sophisticated than that.
So with everything you're saying, it sounds like it was a pretty easy decision for you to put the belt on Tyrus.
No, but I'm not trying to change your question. It wasn't an easy decision or a hard decision. It wouldn't be an easy or a hard decision based on the calculus that most people would think. Does it make sense?
So you're just looking at it strictly from a wrestling standpoint, is what you're saying?
No, I'm looking at it from a holistic thing. I just value things at a different level.
So is the value there? And I totally think this is brilliant marketing. He brings the championship onto Fox.
By the way, he did that on his own. That was nothing I asked of him. And by the way, he also said, "Are you cool with this?" So that's somebody who behind the scenes is doing business for me the right way. Hey, are you cool with this? Yeah. I'm going to do this. By the way, he took heat at one point for doing it inside, and he's still wearing the belt. So he represents the company with pride. Again, I know him as a man, as a human being. He's not some guy on television. I know the person. I knew him before he started that gig. So when you ask me, was that an easy or hard decision? Yeah. It's based on the whole calculus of the person that I know, the opportunity that we have together. I like what it says about our company, that anybody can walk through the door and have an opportunity at my company. And I'm not talking about diversity. I'm not talking about what you bring to the table in terms of brand value. I'm talking about if you walk through the door and you get over with me, I will give you the opportunity. And I will not listen to somebody in a corner who's never stepped in a wrestling ring tell me how to book my promotion, any less than I will listen to you scream from the back row and tell me what song to play on stage. You are talking to the wrong dude there. I am not that guy. I have benefited in this life from being who I am, which is a weirdo, OG goth guy over here. I was doing it long before anybody thought it was cool and there were t-shirts at Hot Topic, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then there were times where people told me, you have to tone all that down. And I didn't. And now I'm having an even bigger run of success later in life because of who I am. So the NWA, by extension, as my company, represents that spirit, which is it's about getting over. It isn't about, hey, somebody might complain because of the thing. It's a brutal physical business. Look, we're in Vegas. You could argue that part of Vegas's renaissance in the last 20 years has a lot to do with the UFC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm not talking about Dana White's politics. I'm talking about who Dana White, the person, and I know Dana just a little bit. What does Dana always say? I don't give a fuck what you think. I'm running a fight game.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So by extension, I'm in the fight game. We're in the promotions game. So when I say stuff like, and it was, of course, not so much misquoted as misappropriated. If you don't like Tyrus, you don't like wrestling. That's not what I was saying. I would never tell a wrestling fan, if you don't like this one individual talent, you don't like wrestling. That's stupid.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is if you don't like who Tyrus is in the world in wrestling, then you're not really into wrestling. You're into some sort of weird patty cake game where you get to pick the toys you want to play with and make them fight like little kids. This is a brutal promotions game. I need the best athletes and the best personalities in the world to clash so that someone like you will want to pay to see it.
So when you talk about you want people to impress you, what do you look for in new talent when they come into the NWA, or when you're looking at them, scouting them to possibly come in?
I don't want clones. If you look at the NWA roster in terms of who's sort of booked and gets repeatedly booked, there's almost nobody like them in wrestling. Now, you may argue and say, okay, I kind of get why you like this guy over here, but this guy over here is more talented. Yeah, but that guy's a clone. I don't want clones. I made my bona fides in the world by being an alternative rock star, not a rock star, an alternative rock star. I charted a path that very few people thought there was any money in, and we've been very successful for over 35 years. Excuse me. So my point is I'm looking for people who have a little bit of something that's just a little bit different. I grew up on Adrian Adonis and Jerry Blackwell and Jesse the Body, a lot of AWA in Chicago, Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher. No clones there. Very different individuated personalities. So if we're playing the little game where we put the toys together and they fight, I like the matchup. So go back to Tyrus for a second. If you don't like Tyrus, then boo, or you know what I mean? But if you're going to say, I'm not going to watch because I don't like, it's like, are we at that level of stupidity? Does it make sense, the argument that I'm making? And I'm not asking you to agree. I'm saying, does it make sense?
Of course it makes sense. Yes, it totally makes sense. I'd also...
Has every UFC fighter that's walked in the ring universally loved by the UFC fans?
Of course not. No. It's interesting in wrestling how sometimes people can't separate the character that someone's playing from who they are in the real world.
Did Brock Lesnar not leave WWF or E at the time to go play in the NFL, had total heat with Vince, okay, came back, had total heat with the wrestling audience, right?
Yeah, got booed WrestleMania against Goldberg.
And who's been one of the top attractions for the last 15 years?
Yeah, well.
Or 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, what game are we in? Are we in the patty cake game or are we in the fight promotions game?
Yeah.
Now, everybody watching knows that wrestling is not real, but there's a reality to the not real.
Yeah.
Which is, who are you trusting to go in there and create that movie for you in real time, living theater? Who are you going to put that around? So when people ask me, or you ask me, was that an easy or hard decision? I know the man. I don't know the person on television. I know the man. And I walk proudly with that man. If people don't like it, I don't care.
You know what clip/GIF gets replayed from the NWA all the time? Eli Drake, Shoes of a Champion promo. And I was there for that too. I remember sitting backstage going, this is magic, and we were watching it.
Well, I think it was because he had, I think they were doing something with champagne, and
Yes.
he was
indulging.
barely intoxicated. Are you going down the road of his recent success?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people have been sleeping on him for
Not
10
me.
years. Not you. And,
me.
and also people are forgetting that he was a world champion in Impact.
Yes. When I was in the booking office of then TNA, I was certainly one of his biggest fans. I pushed hard to get him more time.
I love Sean. I think Sean is so insanely talented.
Yes, one of the great promos of all time, and that's not to take away anything from his wrestling. He is a main event level ability in the ring. But we all know that if you can walk and talk, you hit that other echelon.
Yeah.
It's great to see him hitting that now. We booked him. He was being set up to be NWA heavyweight champion, and that's right around I think the time that the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
He was under an NWA contract, and it got to the point where it was like, I can't remember what it was, but me and him always did good business. No heat there, but it was obvious that it was like he needed to go pursue other opportunities, and where I was standing at the time was just going to hold him back. There was something there, but it was clearly understood that obviously it was built around Aldis for a while, but once Aldis was going to drop the title, it was going to clearly go to him. So it's a shame that it never happened because we would have had a lot of fun. Always great to work with him. And somewhere there's a picture of my 50th birthday, and it's me, Aaron Stevens, Eli Drake, EC3, and I can't remember another person from wrestling was there. So yeah, I've always gotten on with him, and I'm very happy for him. And he deserves every bit of success that's coming his way because he's fought and clawed his way to get there.
What do you think it is that WWE is not? Why aren't they pulling the trigger on him?
Are you asking me to criticize them, or are you asking me to guess?
Because look, you saw what everybody else sees in Eli Drake, LA Knight, whatever you want to call him.
I'll tell you what. Let me do it slightly differently.
Okay.
Because I was in the office of TNA pushing him, saying, we've got to get behind this guy. And I heard the people in the office who didn't buy it.
Wow. He was great in TNA.
And by the way, that was when he was 7-8 years younger than he is now.
Talk about dummies.
Well,
yeah.
we had that gimmick where he hit,
so good.
hit the
Yeah.
ball. Yeah.
That was so good.
I think that yeah, you know what? Listen, I don't want to throw water on his moment because he deserves it. I think one thing that I think people would point to from a booking point of view, again, this was not my perspective, I heard it in the office there, was size.
Wow. Stand next to the guy.
Great.
It's jacked.
Yeah, but when it's hard to explain the dynamics here. For example, I'll put it in the NWA world for a second.
Okay.
Trevor Murdoch, 6'6", Mike Knox, 6'7", Tyrus, 6'7", 6'8". NWA is very big. Mm-hmm. We're kind of very big with our main event guys. So a guy who's 6'1", 6'2", can look small, and optics in the product can be an issue. But here's what I've always said, and you kind of follow your little axioms in wrestling. My thought is because there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years with Tony pushing cruiserweights so hard. If you're going to be 5'9" or 6'1" or whatever, you got to be one of the all-time greats. You got to be Rey Mysterio. You got to be Shawn Michaels. You got to be Flair. You got to be so good that you're high. So is Sean Ricker, Eli Drake / LA Knight? What's his name today? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he have that level of ability? Does he have the moxie? Does he have the charisma? Does he have the promo? Can he wrestle at that level? Yes. I've seen it. I know it. So I would have not an ounce of doubt. But if there are people on that side of the fence who would have their doubts, traditionally, and this is more observational, WWE seems very reluctant to jump in when the crowd gets in behind a guy or a girl.
Yes.
They tend to kind of really slow walk that process and see how real it is.
And there's been several examples of that. And
let's be fair about it for the sake of argument. Is there a reason that is there a reason, or may there be a reason that that's good business? Is it? Because I'll say sometimes, I'm not letting the marks book my promotion. Somebody would say, well, but somebody's hot. The business is there. Maybe there's some other reason that we don't see.
Yeah.
It might have something to do with destabilizing the locker room, and it might have something to do with, what people always say, Vince makes the decisions. Yeah. He decides. He's God, right?
Yeah.
He's the character that he played, I'm God, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to be in the position of running $1 billion company and having 50 plus years of data in Vince's brain of what does and doesn't work to know, okay, yeah, you might think that's good business, but for the bigger business of the WWE, here's why it's bad, and here's why I got to slow walk it.
Yeah. When you talk about optics,
because if it was that way, Cody would be champion right now.
I think it's just a matter of time. Till he's the
champion. Again, another super talented person that I was an NWA champion, and I got to work with, and I really like him as a person.
Same. Yeah.
Right. What I'm saying is, if you just went on momentum and T-shirt sales, well, Cody would be your champion. It would be Cody versus LA Knight.
Yeah, I didn't even.
But think about this. Remember when fans weren't totally getting behind Roman, and they stuck with it, And now that's really paying off.
Well, all it took was a global pandemic and no fans in the building.
I don't know, but what I'm trying to say is there are moments where you're faced with the decision as the person booking the roster, where you have to get in behind people that the fans maybe don't get or don't see, or getting that talent over is more beneficial to the overall arc of your business than just one angle.
Where I was going with the optics is NWA has a very different look now than it did in 2019. A lot of people loved that studio look. What was the decision behind changing the look?
I just thought it kind of got stale. We're talking about changing look for a third time. I think part of it too was a bit reactionary, and I'm not saying this is a good, bad thing, but I just heard people saying the word throwback or old school or nostalgic too often with the NWA. I am not running a nostalgic promotion. I'm telling you straight up, there's no business there. There's no upside there. There isn't a fan base that's just suddenly going to come out with their walkers and start showing up.
What is it? It's not a nostalgic business. Is it a modern wrestling company?
Absolutely a modern wrestling company.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think creating a nostalgic frame that I knew would work as a business model to shoot television in a way that would balance out the economic forces of the early NWA concerns, it was quite successful. So since then, we've experimented with different formulas, and now we have a new formula that we're about to implement. And it involves some of the business things that we haven't announced yet, but yeah, I feel good about that. But absolutely, I reach a point in a reactionary way where I just get sick of hearing that kind of throwback, old school world. Not because I don't love it, I do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have bought the NWA if I didn't love it, but there's no business there. There's it's completely a dead end.
What do you think you learned from your time in TNA, good or bad, that you're now applying?
I got, as much as it was a crazy legal thing, I got a free education in how to run a wrestling company.
So what are some of the things you implement now that you learned there, good or bad? Things you go, I'm never doing that, or, oh, that worked really well.
I think the most valuable asset that I learned was learning how to shoot promos and producing segments, which allowed me access to dealing with talents more behind the scenes and getting inside character and how character animates in ring product. Because of the economic situation with the NWA, I'm not always able to do creatively what I want to do. So right now we're let's call it the very straightforward, lean version of what I want to do. But I think you see the emphasis on characters is really important, and then how characters wrestle is very important. And again, I would point to the WWF/E as being the main proponent of creating a business model which has been successful.
So is this do you have a 5-year plan? Is it a 25-year plan for?
I said it was a 20-year plan about 5 years ago, and it's pretty much a 20-year plan.
Are you at where you wanted to be? I mean, obviously,
yes.
Things were kind of on hold there for a little while.
There are moments of frustration where I wish I'd gotten the TV deal that seemed like it was there, but then you realize, and it's a little bit of what I went through with the band. The minute you jump in the deeper water, now you're subservient to a greater set of forces which are beyond your control. Put simply to the camera, the minute you take somebody else's money, now you're in a different negotiation. And they start, I remember, just to tell a quick funny story. I remember being at TNA and there was some grousing about Kurt Angle being the champion, which seems strange to me because Kurt Angle is one of the all-time greats and always a great person to do business with behind the scenes. Nothing but respect for Kurt. So I was like, why are people complaining? Oh, well, somebody pulls you aside. Well, what we were on Destination America. Yeah. Destination America told Dixie Carter, you need someone as champion who represents America. So Dixie just switched the belt.
It's not an Olympic gold medalist.
But the thing was, it was the grousing in the company was because it wasn't a wrestling decision based on setting up wrestling and characters. It was like the network who's paying us all this money told us, so we're going to do what the network said. So the grousing wasn't against Kurt.
Trying to think of who EC3. Wow. I put 2 and 2 together there.
There you go.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying is, sometimes you get frustrated and you think, I really wish I got that TV deal, but we may be in a worse position now because maybe we wouldn't have been able to fulfill the thing that we would have obligated ourselves to if we entered into a deal that we weren't ready to make. Now I feel, so if we're doing a report card assessment, about 6 years into me owning the company, I think the wrestling is at the highest quality that it's been in the 6 years. I'm very, very happy with where the wrestling is and is getting better, and we're getting younger, which I think is the key. We have a lot of key young talents under contract, so very happy about that, and so the future looks bright there. And I think moving away from this kind of lazy take of old school and modernizing the product, and now we're about ready to flip the switch into a more modern style of production. So, and I think honestly, to be fair, past clickbait, I think a lot of the criticisms have been fair. I think the only thing I would say in defense is a lot of the criticisms that are fair, they don't know the whole story, and I'm not a person who's always going to run out and try to defend myself. When I was getting a lot of heat about Tyrus-related stuff, let's call it round 1 and round 2 of Tyrus-related issues, some of my friends and some of my friends in wrestling who aren't in the company, let's just say people around the biz who know me and sort of don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, would call and say, why aren't you out there defending yourself more? Because there is this other kind of aspect to these stories, not just Tyrus, other stuff involved. And I'm like, I have a different game I'm playing because the band is very successful. I can't be fencing with dirt sheet writer number 7 over some point that makes a lot of sense in the wrestling bubble. I got bigger fish to fry, and I got a company to run that's called the NWA. Yeah. So my focus has been getting the NWA culture right. So one of the things I've said through the years is don't sleep on the NWA. There's a lot of people in the wrestling bubble who sleep on the NWA because they don't understand what I'm doing, and because I'm not sort of filleting them every day and feeding them dirt sheet information. Yeah. Right? They sort of see me as sort of a curiosity in the corner. They don't understand I'm running a real business here that has a real opportunity to succeed.
So what's the elevator pitch for one of those people that don't get it, that don't understand what the NWA is all about?
Are you talking about a fan, yes, a dirt sheet writer, or a person in the network?
Wow. I would say a person that maybe watches WWE and or AEW, or maybe one or the other.
My pitch to someone who's watching current wrestling on television is the NWA is running a tougher product.
Like harder hitting?
Yeah. We're just a tougher product. We're a more physical and tougher product than anybody out there right now, bar none. Now, if you want to point to, say, GCW doing what they're doing, and they do some cool and crazy stuff, okay, we're not ECW. But if you're talking about, let's call it 2 people in a ring having a contest, and there ain't no light tubes, and there ain't no swinging, battle axe coal miner's glove from a pole.
That's excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a wrestling match.
Yeah.
William Patrick Corgan versus CVV.
I'm in.
Okay. And you're just going to have a 6-minute television match. By and large, the NWA product is more physical and tougher in that scenario than just about every other company running. And we ain't running Japanese strong style. This is very much an American AWA/NWA 1960s to early 80s Crockett product. And that's not throwback. They wrestled that way for a reason. It was good business. So I've identified that's who the NWA is, that's who we're going to be, and that's the mountain we're going to die on.
I want to take a
So real quick, let me just finish my pitch because you asked me.
Yeah.
So 15-year-old kid loves wrestling,
yep,
right? And I'm not going to pick a company because it's not fair. But let's say they're watching one product and they watch a little bit of the other. If and when they stumble across the NWA, I want them to go, this company's got a little bit more sauce in what they're doing. Why did I like ECW? For the same reasons.
Yep.
Okay. It wasn't so much the crazy hardcore stuff, although I did enjoy New Jack jumping off of, the Empire State Building, putting poor balls through the floor.
May he rest in peace. Both
God
of them.
bless. Yeah, God bless them both. Knew them both. Had my issues with both. We're still talking about most wrestling is 2 people in a ring having a match. What attracted me to ECW was the rebelliousness and the fact that it was like, we're going to do it our way. Jerry Lawler walks into the ECW arena. Extremely crappy wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Jerry's criticism, which was valid, which is, you guys really aren't wrestling the way we do it in Memphis. But to a new generation, it's like, we don't care about all that hoo-ha. We want something that feels more real. Paul Heyman once told me that part of his vision for ECW was it was the grunge version of wrestling, which made total sense to me.
Sure.
And he said, when I saw bands like yours and Nirvana, it's like, I want that in wrestling. So he was able to bring that spirit into wrestling. The most successful promotion in the world, fight promotion in the world, is UFC. If you notice, a lot of times they don't always market babyface versus heel. Sometimes it's heel versus heel.
Yeah.
Who's the tougher hombre, or with the ladies doing so successful as well, who's the tougher lass?
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're running. To me, that simple alchemy is going to work. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I can get in a place where you have a fan, and they don't have to go diving on YouTube to find NWA. You have a 15-year-old or a 22-year-old, and they like the wrestling, and they click on one, and they click on another, and they click on mine, they're going to be attracted to mine because mine's tougher. Now, how do you define tougher in a worked environment? Well, that's a different podcast.
I want to ask you this question as a musician,
and
then separately as a wrestling promoter. What is the most annoying thing someone could say to you as a musician?
Well, there's the social aspect of how people deal with me in life, and then there's how people deal with me as a musician.
Is it when they're like, I like this one song?
The most annoying thing for me as a musician is when somebody walks up and sort of does this weird thing where they compliment one period of my life musically while discounting the other period.
So they go, oh man, I love 1979.
Thank you for making Siamese Dream. You saved my life. By the way, this has happened 50 times. This is not one story. Siamese Dream saved my life. I mean, thank you so much.
Incredible.
And I'm like, wow, I was suicidal and I was ready to jump off a building. And that album, thank you. Awesome.
Wow.
And I go to sip my green tea, and then they go, but after that, I don't really get it.
They say that to your face?
Yeah. And I'll literally say, why do I need to know this? And they go, I thought you'd want to know. And I'm thinking, I don't fucking know anything. Fuck off. Why the fuck would I want to know that? So you reach a point where you don't want to know anything. You don't want to know that they lost their virginity. You know what I mean? You don't want to know anything. Because invariably behind that little rainbow is some diss just waiting.
What if it's like, Billy, I got married to one of your songs?
Oh, I get that. And my child was born to your song. Look, these are very honorable things, and I'm not dismissing them. It does touch me. But I've learned through the years to be like, because you wait for the ...
Is there often, is it often like, all right, we'll just go to the wrestling world of that. So what's the most annoying thing a wrestling fan could say to you?
They don't really, we haven't reached that. I think the people that would sort of annoy me loosely is they don't really understand what I'm doing. A friend of mine, friend in quotations, contacted me about something that was a dirt sheet thing. You know what I mean? And this is somebody who knows me personally. And they were literally reacting off of the dirt sheet thing. And I wrote him back like, but you know me. Like, are you that dumb that you're going to go with the dirt sheet take on something with me as opposed to, like, that's annoying.
Yeah.
I don't expect the average wrestling fan, and I don't mean average in a negative way, the person who cares about wrestling, they're in the bubble, they're reading the clickbait. I don't expect them to know everything about me, care about my musical life. That's not what I'm asking. I just don't like when people misrepresent what the NWA is. Let's just do a quick reframe for anybody still watching.
They're all still watching.
God bless. I took a company, which was out about 68th or 69th year. I literally picked it up out of the ashes, as we said before. WWE didn't even want it to take it off the market. I brought it back to life. I've given a lot of people work. I gave people opportunities when nobody else wanted them. And I don't mean that in a negative way. They didn't see what I saw in them. I've created now, there was the year where we didn't work because of the pandemic, but I've created about 5 years worth of content, and I've got matches with Ricky Starks and Eli Drake and Thunder Rosa that people have passed through the doors. And in some cases, people credit certain talents' work in the NWA as the best work that talent's ever done. I'd like to think I have something to do with that. I'm not in their wrestling, but I certainly put them in a position to succeed or thrive. And I've been happy when talents have gone on to bigger and better things out of the NWA because I'm not so crazy to think that I can provide them with that same opportunity. Eddie Kingston is a person that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Love Eddie. Great person to work with. So I've created a unique voice in wrestling that has some ties to the past in terms of product, not just historically. And I'm creating another voice in wrestling. How is that a bad thing? It isn't. We have probably the strongest women's division in all of wrestling. I would make that argument. A lot of great female wrestlers in the NWA. Very proud with the way we've run that, and we've built it, and we've invested in that. And even, we're able to put on a show, an all-female show. And that, of course, became its own version of controversy after that. We'll skip past that one for today.
You've talked about that a bunch.
Yes, but even there's a perfect example. The true story of the Empower thing has never been told.
I thought you told it on Busted Open. No?
No. There's the real story.
Okay.
So we'll save that for the right moment.
All right. Podcast number 4.
Sure. What I'm trying to say is, the NWA is purposefully not about me. I've only used me in the NWA if it helps the NWA. Trust me, nothing I do in the NWA helps my musical life. Try 0 or less than 0. There are fans that stopped listening to my music because I entered professional wrestling.
Wow. You probably gained some wrestling fans, though.
Hard to say. All I'm trying to say is my love for the sport, my love of trying to rebuild this company. Okay, you see, there's something there. And I'm not even asking you to like it. I'm saying at least sort of have some general respect for something's been created and give it its due and its individuated voice. We're a lot more successful than people think we are. But because we live in this bubble of clickery, people sometimes don't understand the accomplishment. And then they start to think that that's how some representation of what's not being done right. Quick example, boring story. I opened a tea house, which is still running in Highland Park, Illinois, where I live. We're in our about 7th or 8th year of operation. We have 2 different locations. It was shut down for 2 years, but okay, it's still running. As soon as I opened a tea house, everybody came in, they pull me aside and they say, you know what you really need in here? You need some couches. I go, you mean like Starbucks? They're like, yeah. And I'd say, I didn't open a tea house to be Starbucks. If I wanted to be Starbucks, I'd open a Starbucks.
Yeah.
I didn't start the NWA to be the other companies. So when people try to turn the NWA into the other companies, why would you want a second, third-rate version of what everybody else is running? I don't get that. I didn't build my music brand on being second or third best something. It's weird.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Everything you say, you're the best guest we've ever had on here. I love talking to you. Please indulge me here.
Here comes the controversial question.
Does family,
this is the sugar
this
before
is silly. Does Family Guy reach out before they use your photo on an episode?
They did.
And is it cool? Or is it like, oh, come on, this again?
Are you talking about where they used me as a meme at Disneyland?
Yes.
They did reach out. They asked to use my song, Tonight. So when they flashed me on the screen with the sad picture of me at Disneyland, they wanted to use my song. And I said no.
That would have been a large sum of money.
Honestly, it wasn't a large sum of money, but it really wasn't about the money.
Okay.
I just thought it was let's call it, I don't mind the joke. I think the joke is funny, but don't ask me to participate in the joke. Does that make sense? It sort of draws a line.
Yeah, I got you. Mm-hmm.
Like, have a laugh. I'm worth being laughed at. It's cool. It's a silly thing that happened that day. Somebody, if nobody knows, somebody took a picture of me at Disney and looking sad at that particular instance. I had a great day. I had a lot of fun.
It's the happiest place on earth.
Took dozens of pictures with fans, but somehow somebody snapped a telephoto shot of me on a ride looking sad, and it became a meme, right? It's funny, right? So have a laugh. Just don't ask me to give you my song while you're laughing at me. They drew the line there.
Have you seen the other very silly thing where it's like Billy Corgan rides a roller coaster? It's like,
yes.
Wee!
Yes. There are a few moments in your life where you remember something very clearly.
Yeah.
You know, Instagram, DM, boom. somebody sends me Billy Corgan on a roller coaster. It's a view of a roller coaster, and it's just my voice singing one note for infinity.
From 1979,
It's a silly joke. It went viral. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Okay. They're using my song. Great. Okay. When the 700th person sent me it and said, "Have you seen this?" And you're just like, "Yes, I've seen the meme," you know?
Am I the 700th person to ask you in an interview?
Well, you reach a point where it's like, because of the way AI works on whatever, Instagram and stuff, people always don't get those things at the same time.
Right. Like with the algorithm,
Yeah, so the algorithm will give you something, you're like, oh, check out this clip, and everybody's seen it for 8 years, but to you, it's like, oh my God, have you seen the guy getting punched in the face? So then you send it to your friend, and then your friend's like, dude, that's like 7 years old, right?
Yeah.
So that's that clip of me going down the roller coaster.
Thank you for indulging me there.
That was definitely indulgent. That's so inside, I can't believe it.
Well, do you think the forbidden door will ever be opened up, that some of your talent could be shared with AEW, Impact Wrestling, or vice versa?
I have made those offers, and the business was not done. I think we did do some stuff with Impact, and it was positive. I think they're very much on their own lane, and they were doing stuff with AEW as well, and they seem at the moment very focused on just worrying about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I can't begrudge them for that. I do think there were and are, although now I'm not in the mindset. So I'm kind of in a similar mindset now, which is like the NWA should just worry about the NWA. But I do think, and I've said this many times, I do think that the public would benefit from all the major independent, and I include AEW in its own way, because you could argue it's an independent company, because it's basically an indie mindset blown up writ large. If all those companies banded together, they could create an event that would rival or even surpass WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. But you get into factions, egos, and that's the end of the discussion. When I've said it through the years, and I've said it probably for over 3 years, I think it's probably taken on the other side of that conversation as being self-serving, like, well, yeah, we would be doing you a favor. Mm-hmm. No, I'm saying it as somebody who's been in media for over 30 years and can read the landscape. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want an event where you could rival the biggest wrestling event in the world? And it's laying right there on the table, and it's been laying there for over 3 years. Yeah. So I'm not casting aspersions or cutting a promo on anybody, but I think it's bad business. And let's just pretend the NWA doesn't exist and there's no Billy Corgan. I'm just Billy Corgan, the rock star, making a point about meta politics in the world. Mm-hmm. The way the world works is they only pay attention if something is screaming in their face, pay attention. And as I said at the beginning of this podcast, most of the world doesn't care about wrestling. Yeah. That is not a negative against wrestling. We're sitting here talking because we love wrestling.
Yes.
And we're talking to a lot of people who love wrestling.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you want the world who doesn't love wrestling to hear and find out about what you love?
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about, an Omega or, whoever, Will Ospreay, why wouldn't you want the whole world to see Will Ospreay give a 9-star Meltzer jerk-off match? We've already seen it, and we've benefited as fans to watch greatness happen. So all I'm trying to say is as a critic from the outside, because I can walk both sides of it, is wrestling is passing up a tremendous opportunity. And by the way, now that WWE is being sold to Endeavor, you now have a $21 billion company with UFC over here and WWE over here. So that puts even more pressure on everybody else that's not in that ecosystem.
Yeah.
And whether you want to start with Tony and work your way down, or New Japan and work your way down, it doesn't matter. Whether it's Scott D'Amore or Billy Corgan or Tony Khan, we're all faced with this Goliath.
Yeah.
We will see marketing like you've never seen. We will see, you can't even imagine what they're going to do. They're licking their chops. They are about to run the fight game for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
So again, somebody who's not worried about the ego of it goes, well, why wouldn't you put all these things together and create something that the Goliath can't mess with?
Yeah.
So if that sounds self-serving, go ahead. I'm just pointing out, it's like the king has no clothes. It's like, does anybody see what's possible? Would you be interested in an event where the top wrestlers not signed to WWE once a year would be in the same building?
Of course. And I think that the answer from every wrestling fan is yes. Hell yeah.
Okay. Would it make sense if it was a 2-day event?
Sure.
Okay.
Sign me up.
Don't you think it's possible that you could take the top talent from every company and put that together in a way that would be, every media would have to cover it. It would be unmistakable. It would sell out a stadium, no problem. For 2 nights, no problem. It would be a destination event, whether it was in Vegas or Green Bay, Wisconsin.
If anyone could do it, I think Billy Corgan could bring us
together.
together.
I don't have that. I don't. No,
you could talk to Tony. You could talk to Scott.
Tony don't want to talk to me about it. Again, and I'm going back to let's call it the more respectful side of the conversation. Tony's worried about Tony. Scott's worried about Scott. Billy's worried about Billy. You know,
pumpkins.
Cool. Everybody could do what they want to do. I'm not the little kid in the corner begging. I don't need anybody's help. NWA is completely self-funded. I don't have any partners. I don't need anybody's permission. So everything we've talked about is basically the NWA being its own ecosystem in its own world. So if that's all we ever are, that's fine. I think it's a disservice on a business level and to the fans to not put something together that the Goliath over here, and trust me, if you thought WWE was powerful before, you have no idea what's coming now.
Yeah. None.
Because now you're opening up, you know, and now that we're past some of the political issues with the Saudis and stuff like that, and I'm not saying it's not dicey. It has its own issues. But what I'm saying is the world is opening up into a global economy. If you're a business person and you don't sit there and go, oh my God, you know how many people don't watch television the way that we watch television in the West, and they're now coming on board because all you need is a phone.
Yeah.
You don't even need a cable box. I mean, that is the stuff of wet dreams. Can you imagine going back in time to Sam Mushnick and say, this is where wrestling can be and what wrestling could reach? They wouldn't even believe it was possible.
Yeah.
They were worried about selling tickets at the Kansas City War Memorial. You know what I mean? We're in a totally different ballgame because of digital reach, which is why these companies are putting together this big piece. So why we're over here worried about all this minutia and clickbait stuff over here, there's big business going on over here. And I'm at least somebody who's lived in the other world who can tell you that's what they're doing. If you want to put your fingers in your ears and pretend and say, I like this better, and there may come a point where your liking of it may not be the difference maker.
I feel like people are going to be playing back that clip in like 5 years. Like, Billy told us that this is what Endeavor was going to be.
There's people playing clips of me from music from 20 years ago where I called it out. But nobody wants to hear it because it's a fantasy-led business, you know? So have your fantasy. I don't mind in this setting, you know, and there are a few other settings where I feel comfortable to talk about it strictly as a business concern.
Yeah. Can I ask you one more silly question?
Sure.
How many
haven't they all been silly questions?
They all have been silly. How many times have you seen the Billy, when are we going to have a rat in a cage match?
Believe it or not, that actually came up recently in an NWA meeting. We were talking about it. We were talking about having a rat in the. But I think, and you can help me with this.
Sure.
Because this is where I got lost. I love the idea of a rat in the cage match, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's just say it's a cage match.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, so it's a cage match, rat in the cage match.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it. So you're actually talking about something we have been discussing.
Incredible. This is clickbait right here.
You look, it's like 7 views. What's the finish, though? Because I immediately go to the Weasel match with Heenan where you'd have to wear the Weasel suit.
What a deep cut. Wow.
Right. So is the rat in the cage match that you have to wear a rat suit?
No, it's just the rat gets out of the cage. Like, it's Billy
There's got to be a wrinkle, though. Come on, there's got to be a wrinkle.
The song plays during the promo.
No, come on. You do better than that. There's got to be some other compunction in there that adds to the business of it.
Have you had any?
You make a vegan like me eat cheese. What's the?
Ooh, that's good. Have you had any Smashing Pumpkin songs play in the NWA?
Oh yeah.
Well then, I mean, this is perfect. I mean, we already have a song for the Rat in a Cage match.
In fact, some of my songs used to be played in TNA back in the day.
Your song, I remember how distinctly your song guided the Watchmen trailer.
Yes, that was an interesting thing because I wrote that song for Batman, the one with Uma and Schwarzenegger.
Oh, wow.
And Clooney was
Clooney,
Batman.
yeah.
Was it
Batman
Forever?
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Joel Schumacher was
I better
the director.
look because they're going to get us otherwise.
You Googling?
Yeah. All the world's information's in front of us.
Oh,
here,
okay.
so let's see.
You Google on your show?
Not usually, but I don't want to get it wrong. So
I'm going to go with Batman Forever.
I think you're correct. And of course, it's not loading. So
I got to visit the set. I'll kill the dead time that you're creating with your lack of professionalism.
Jeez. They have computers that work
I got
back
to
here.
visit
Maybe
the
you guys
set.
can
That was
tell
cool.
me. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I went one day. They invited me down, and it was the Poison Ivy set.
Oh, that was cool.
So imagine like a whole warehouse thing, and it was like, like you think now they would do it with CGI or whatever. So there were like plants for like 100 yards. I mean, it was crazy huge. They created this thing, and Uma was in gimmick, and which was cool. Yeah. So what was weird about that is I wrote that song. I did two versions of the songs, a fast version, a slow version. The fast version was a single. Fans didn't like the slow version, Pumpkins fans. And so the song basically lapsed into obscurity. And then all of a sudden somebody sends me one day, hey, can we use this song for the Watchmen trailer? And I was like, it was like a dream set of images with the song. And then I think like the day the song, this is back when people would still buy music on Apple, but the day the song debuted on the trailer, I think we sold like 11,000 of the song.
Wow.
Which is like, that's crazy.
Yeah. From a song that had lapsed, like you said.
So imagine having like a $200 million video for your song that nobody cared about. So since then, his song's become like a bit of a classic now, posthumously in the Pumpkins world. We have played it on tour. It's a cool song.
Yeah. Billy,
and it was actually produced by Nellie Hooper, who most notably produced Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor, who just passed away. So there's your 6 degrees of separation. And I knew Sinead a little bit and very sad about her passing. Yeah. So where am I going with that? How do we get it back to wrestling?
I think that was it. I've so thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Have I escaped the wrestling bubble by talking about some of my other experiences in life?
I mean, that's why people are taking photos of you. Yeah. It's like, it's Billy Corgan. Oh my gosh.
Should we talk about NWA 75?
Are
you not going to promote my event here?
Of course we are. That's what we started with.
Not really. You went into controversy. You went into clickbait. You went into memes. Can we at least promote the event? It's a big pay-per-view. 2 days. St. Louis.
It's the biggest pay-per-view.
August 26th and 27th.
Your friend
Matt
Tyrus
Cardona is going to be there.
Yep.
Speaking of Matt Cardona. Your world heavyweight champion, Tyrus. I know you're a big fan.
My friend Joe Alonzo is going to be there.
Joe Alonzo, very, very talented. Also under contract to the NWA.
Yep.
Tyrus, floating out retirement. He has legitimately been talking about retiring. So
he says if he loses this match, he's retiring. And Tyrus haters are rejoicing at this idea.
Well, cool. I look at a man who's put his body through a lot. When you're that big, it's very physical to be that big, just to move through life. And he is a big man, with 6'7", 370. So if it's his time, okay. I'd be not surprised, more sort of like feel like we still left some stuff on the table. But if he reaches that point, then okay. He certainly walks to the beat of his own drum. And so if he's ready, he's ready. I do know he's going to go out with a hell of a fight, and hence him wanting to book it as a bow rope match. And what am I trying to say? There's the promotional aspect of, okay, it's going to be a bull rope match, and it'll be a very, very good match between two guys who have a lot of history together, him and EC3. EC3 doing tremendous work right now, too.
Guy looks incredible.
Oh my God, he's unbelievable. And I know, as I pointed out, he was at my 50th birthday party. I know EC3, the man, as well. Very smart, very cool person.
Love that guy.
And there's a lot of energy there between them. So on a booking thing, it looks good on paper. But let's step back 1 second, because I think this is the right venue to talk about that stuff, because we have talked about it. Why does Tyrus, the global icon, why does he want to do a bull rope match? Because in there is still the little kid who loves Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes was his great teacher. So he'd be at the Performance Center working with Dusty, right? That's the part that fans don't see. And I'm not saying you should understand it differently. I'm saying is sometimes look a little past the sale on what you're told and understand that people in this business have a lot of passion. So just that little glimmer of thing, it's a tribute to Dusty. So what is the champion of the National Wrestling Alliance, 75 years of lineal champions? What does he want to do in the main event of the 75th anniversary show of this company? He wants to pay tribute to his teacher and his friend. That's the part that people get lost on sometimes. And that's the part that I have access to.
I think I'd be remiss to not mention Aaron Stevens. And my goodness, that man is talented.
Speaking of Bobby Heenan, when we finally landed, and we've been through a lot of iterations through the years, and don't forget, I go back to doing TNA. Remember when we were in TNA, he was doing kind of a Liberace gimmick? I mean,
yes.
we've experimented with a lot of stuff through the years. What was it, Spud? Rockstar Spud was his valet.
Yes.
That was some funny stuff.
We did it for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, that's when the company got sold, and that was the end of that. That would have been a lot of good TV. Anybody remembers that?
Yes.
Thank you for remembering. So Aaron also, because of his own, relationship and issues at times with the business, started talking about retiring. And he's had some success as an actor in LA. And I said, why don't you just manage for a while? Just step back, do something different. And it's like, I'm like, oh my God. He walked through the curtain. I was like, it's Bobby Heenan. Now you got to remember, as a kid, I used to watch Bobby Heenan. They would put Bobby Heenan in 3 matches a night at the house, and not the house shows. They, in Chicago, they would do TV for a month. They would probably do a little bunch of regional stuff, and they do one big show at the International Amphitheater, 14,000 people. And how do I know? Because I have all the sheets where they have to sign the commission. And then you look at the gates, 14,000, 13,700.
Wow.
Month after month. They sold out the International Amphitheater, I think, for 385 shows in a row.
Wow.
They were doing real business.
Yeah.
Okay. So Heenan would be on 3 matches a night. That's how good Heenan was for business. He'd be in 3 matches a night. So he'd manage some lower card tag team, some heel in the middle, and then he'd be in the main event.
Man.
So Aaron has that gear.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that Aaron is currently under contract, because I have a feeling at some point the hand from above is going to want to pluck Aaron back up, because there's a lot of money in what Aaron's doing.
Well, the hand from above came and plucked Wade Barrett away from you.
It did. I was very happy. In fact, I talked to Wade after that. I was very happy, very talented, loved working with him. I wish he was still with us, because he's such a talented broadcaster. And he made it very clear, like, look, I'm retired. Like, I'm done with that part of my life.
Yeah.
Very happy to see his success. So that's what I'm saying about the NWA. It's like, we've provided some interesting things, and because of things that happened to NWA, suddenly it's like somebody goes, boom, So that's not a bad thing. That's really, if you think about it, it's a credit to what we've built.
It has been such a pleasure to be able to sit
I can't believe
spend some time with you.
You're not going to talk about Kamille?
Do you want to go through the whole card?
No.
We can.
I'm challenging the promoter in you, and you are a promoter.
Bring it. Kamille is an absolute brick house.
So, we have 800 days of holding that title.
She is so supremely talented, both in the ring and outside of the ring. And
now remember,
she's a specimen.
And I remember when she started the NWA, people were like, "What are they doing?"
She has an incredible future, and I love that it's in the NWA.
I hope so. Yeah. Okay. So Markova, Markova, that's her opponent.
Mm-hmm.
You know anything about Markova?
Not as much as I know about Kamille.
Russian-born, came to America about 5 years ago, and at one point had some interest from WWE. Typical. It didn't quite click, and has been on the independent circuit. I think she's probably the toughest female wrestler in the world right now. And it's interesting because, you can book stuff on paper, but until you see it in the ring, and we've had a couple matches so far with Markova. I think Markova is probably Camille's ultimate opponent. Can match her, not so much in size. Markova's about 5'4", 5'5", but the physicality that Kamille brings to the ring because of her athletic background and obviously her size, I think this might be the ultimate matchup. And as we've seen, and of course we've all seen it at great WrestleManias, there's something about a signature event where everybody kind of ups their game. They come in looking a little better, and they see these as career-defining matches.
Yeah.
So I think Kamille and Markova, which will headline night one of 75, the 2-night event, I think that's one to really watch out for.
So the question I will end with, it's the same question I end every conversation with, is what are 3...
Don't I deserve my own ending question?
Oh, you can, sure.
No, go ahead.
What are 3 things in your life that you're most grateful for right now?
Family. My family. I went through life. I had a lot of tremendous success, a lot of incredible opportunities, and there's pictures of me everywhere with all sorts of incredible, famous people, including people that were heroes of mine, and I got to work in studios with them. I mean, my life just on the music side has been absolutely incredible. But it wasn't until I had my own family that all that made sense. It was always like being in some kind of weird Willy Wonka factory where one piece of candy was amazing and one piece of candy tasted really bad. And I wasn't quite sure what the count was at some point. At times it felt like the bad outweighed the good.
Yeah.
And, we've all seen the behind the music. So, nobody needs to know my particular story to understand that being in a successful rock band, it comes with a weird set of prices to it. Okay. You said 3 things?
Yeah. Family?
Longevity. I think it's amazing that the band is still going. We just played a solo show here in Vegas last night. We're going to be playing another solo show tomorrow, and we're embarking on a summer tour with Interpol and Rival Sons, and Stone Temple Pilots will be on some of those dates. So just that alone, to be a headlining band, arena level headlining band after 35 years with 3/4 of the original band back together. We're only missing one, who shall never return. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And, it's not many people at this late in the game have, 3 hit songs at one time. And it's a pretty good run. If you're having a run, I'm not saying it's Hogan's turn, you know what I mean? But we're in the neighborhood there on the music side.
Yeah.
Number 3, I think it's just living my life the way I want to live it.
I love that.
Part of what we talked about today is just I'm just going to live my life the way I want to live it.
Yeah.
I think we've seen here in the past 6 months to a year, I think people are starting to realize that a lot of life is programmed, whether it's through television or propaganda, whatever. And there are commercial interests for that, and there are governmental interests for that. Most people do better when they kind of figure out, here's who I am, and I want to apply myself into that, and I want to get in the fight of life, and I want to figure out who I am, and I want to figure out what I'm good at. This sitting behind a keyboard telling other people how to live, trying to, whether it's somebody said the wrong word or somebody did the wrong thing. I think we're kind of maybe starting to mature past that. And if you look at the great successes in American culture, they tend to be one-of-a-kind spirits who basically don't listen to what anybody tells them what to do, and they just figure out whether you're Elon Musk or in the Wynn Casino. I mean, it's very, very successful individuals in American culture tend to do well. So my path in life is to just do what I do. And trust me, you hear the criticism, but if you're around as long as I've been, you realize the criticism doesn't really change let's call it the business concern at the end. If the NWA was as simple as listening to the critics and doing what the critics wanted, and suddenly magically I got the company I wanted, I'm not saying I'm such a strong person that I wouldn't do it, but I don't believe that. So why wouldn't I do the thing that I believe in? It's easy to stand on the sidelines and throw a dart and say, you should do that. That's cheap. That's easy. That's it.
Those are 3 great things. Billy Corgan, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.